Hi everyone, my name is Anil Sedha, founder of Tech Tomorrow, and today I am back again for an in-person meeting with James Scott, Field CTO at Dell. And today I am in sunny Ottawa. I came in just today morning, and I am here for a wonderful, candid, no pressure conversation on some lovely topics that we've I think engaged on a little bit in the past, but we feel there's value in getting deep into it. So thank you, James, first of all, for taking the time.
No, thank you for being here. It's great to be here in person with you for a change rather than on camera.
Yes, absolutely. And the way we are going to do this is again, instead of a typical LinkedIn Live, this time around, because we are in person, I'm going to ask you a few questions, add some content later to that.
Okay.
If we feel that some slides or some extra information needs to be added, and this will be presented eventually like that. But I want to start off by talking about something that is directly tied to your role, and this is engaging as well to many CIOs. In your role, you come across a lot of humanizing aspects of IT leadership. It's associated with budget constraints, board expectations, talent gaps, keeping the lights on while being asked to innovate continuously.
Yeah.
So, what do you think keeps CIOs up today at 3 a.m. in 2026?
I guess my official answer should be hopefully nothing because we're doing a good job. But realistically, there's a few big topics that are coming up as things people are worrying about right now. One of them is around driving real ROI from the AI projects that they've got running around their organization. And I think most companies today have started to get a handle on, all those myriad of shadow AI projects going around, and they've narrowed them down to the ones they want to focus in on. But there's still a huge amount of pressure to deliver an ROI, to show the outcome, to show the real impact that AI is having on their business. And that is not easy to do. I especially think this is a challenge in 2026 because we're now moving away from AI as like a widget or a tool to a foundational transformation of an organization or a business. And that means we're not going to see a 3 month, 6 month, maybe even a 12-month ROI because we've got to fundamentally change the structure of an organization sometimes in order for AI to truly play a big role in it. I think that's one answer. I think the other one is the shift we have seen, and this is not new, but again, it's I think particularly prominent this year, from a focus on data residency into data sovereignty, and a bigger concern over how is my data being processed, who is processing it. I kind of describe it as who controls the off switch to my environment, and I'm sure we're going to get into hybrid multi-cloud discussions, but that's a big part of that piece. It's just shifting the mindset into the overall sovereignty. And then because I can already feel people shouting at the screen, supply chain concerns, supply chain compression, the challenges that exist in the market right now that I don't think are going to go away this year. They're probably not going to go away next year. I think we're navigating it pretty well, but if, from the conversations I'm having, CIOs are asking questions about that and what are we seeing? How are we navigating that? What are we doing to help protect them in that space? But it's, that's not an easy one to solve, but I think we're probably doing better than most.
Yeah, and then if there's one thing that I think I can add to it is the sprawl of these autonomous agents.
Yeah,
that's scaring many CIOs these days. But again, you brought up supply chain just now, and hot off the press. Just yesterday, Dell and NVIDIA made some announcements.
Yes, yeah, we did. Yeah.
And the AI factory just got its supercharger. And now there's claims that while delivering storage performance, there's 12x faster vector indexing capabilities and now up to 6 terabytes per second read performance at a rack scale.
Yep.
The other announcement that I read about was the autonomous agents on the desk with Dell's GB300 desktop super chip
Yep.
coming out. and Dell being the first OEM to ship a desktop with the NVIDIA GB300 desktop superchip. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can touch on a few of those. It's incredibly exciting. Like, I'm a technologist, getting hold of this stuff is amazing. I've literally just got my hands on a GB10, and now I'm like, I need a GB300. It's for me, it's that partnership is about being able to provide AI at the right scale for the right customers. So now I think we truly have a phenomenal portfolio. It's just expanding on what we had before. So we've got things like the GB10, like again, having 120 something gigabytes of unified memory in a very small form factor piece of equipment on your desk, being able to run, 72 billion parameter models locally. I had the chance to play around with it at the weekend. Like, it is an incredible device. Now with the announcements of the GB300, scaling that up even further, obviously slightly more power draw than the GB10 and a slightly bigger form factor, but it's still something you can put on your desk. So if you've got, if you're dealing with large models, if you're trying to do some tuning of those models, the ability to just put that equipment where it's needed, and again, data gravity, I'm sure is something we'll touch on, but the ability to put this where it's needed, and then scaling that all the way into the data center. I would describe them all as AI factories, but I think when most people think about them, they are thinking about the data center scale. There's a lot to dive in there, in the huge leap in performance of some of these new rack scale solutions. I think the speed at which we can process the data is now only hampered by the speed at which we can get access to that data. So to your point, a large chunk of that announcement was on data management and data governance, and data organization, so that we can make sure we are feeding the right data into these platforms. But yeah, huge partner of ours, massive showing down in GDC. I feel like I'm the only person stuck in beautiful sunny Ottawa, not in the US right now. It's a lot to keep pace with, but it's exciting.
Yeah, I was reading 20 petaflops, and just a couple of months back, I was looking at some latest Dell AI lineup laptops, and they were like in teraflops.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about petaflops already. So very exciting to see that.
And we're going to need more power in the data center. Just when you thought you had enough, we're now going to need even more. So.
Absolutely. So when it comes to data center, companies are talking about bridging on-prem and multi-cloud. Previously, people thought of cloud first. Now everybody's talking about cloud smart. And Dell Apex, or the Dell Automation Platform, delivers a multi-cloud by design strategy.
Yeah.
Not many people fully understand that strategy, so I want to get into it a little bit here. So I've been reading up a little bit about Dell Apex. I personally have been investing my time in the labs, experiencing Dell Apex Cloud, and how it's designed to simplify the multi-cloud complexity. We've all heard of cloud first. So now, why do customers need to reevaluate that strategy and call it cloud smart?
So I think there's a few things. One is, I think most organizations I'm dealing with have got more experience under their belt of what the cloud offers, and it's a tremendous amount, but you have to use it in the right way. You have to utilize it correctly, to stop the massive fluctuations of, the out of control spend that you can do if you're not careful. I think the cloud smart for me is a realization of right workloads in the right place at the right time. It's not that on-premises is always the right answer. It's not the public cloud is always the right answer. It's, what does my application need? How is this application going to scale? Where is the data coming from? What's the security model I'm looking for? What's the sovereign model that I'm looking for? And having the flexibility and choice. And I think most customers are now looking at, how do I do cloud smart? How do I do cloud right? How do I build a true hybrid cloud environment, or a true multi-cloud environment, which is not easy, by the way. The ability to say, I've got an application and I can provide a consistent experience with that application wherever it makes the most sense to land it. But the other point to your question, because this causes lots of confusion, is we have two big parts of the portfolio that support this. So our Apex portfolio, which is all about consumption models. You're dealing with customers who like the idea of pay as you grow, pay as you consume. I don't know how much I'm going to need. I want to just pay for what I'm using. I don't want to be tied into a massive traditional CapEx spend on infrastructure. That's what Apex helps solve. And then to your point, we now have the Dell automation platform and all of the outcomes that sit underneath that to say you need the cloud experience, because it's no longer in 2026 enough to say I can provision VMs.
Right.
I need to provision much higher up the stack and a wide variety on potentially a multitude of different hypervisors.
And when you say a multitude of different hypervisors, most people generally associate that nowadays with multi-cloud.
Yep.
And that's a term that's thrown out very easily, but not everybody understands the design of it. So, as a CTO, what does multi-cloud by design mean to you?
I think it comes back to my point on this ability to run a workload in the right place. Because I know that sounds really easy, but most of the time when you look at the different application stacks that sit on premises versus the ones that sit in the cloud, they're fundamentally different. And an organization's decision of where they want to run an application is going to depend on those stacks. It's not going to be based on physically where it's located or whether it's on-prem or cloud. And to me, that's what multi-cloud by design means. It means they can create a consistent orchestration layer between these two things and build a customer's cloud, not Dell's cloud, not one of the hypervisors' clouds, but a cloud for the customer, which abstracts away the physical locality of where it's running and lets us be sensible about that. Does it make sense to put this on premises? Does it make sense for us to push this to the edge, or does it make sense for us to push this to a public cloud environment? And actually be able to have that choice, because today for most customers that choice does not exist. It's I've got a Kubernetes environment in the cloud, I've got a VM environment on premises, I've got SaaS applications, and they are still very siloed, and there is not a single control plane, and that's what we're trying to solve. Trying to say here's a way to build out that.
So I'm guessing that partially answers one of the questions I was going to ask ahead, which is one of Apex's core promises, or Dell Automation Platform's core promises, is consistent experience across on-premise, edge, and public cloud.
Yep.
But then you've also got AWS, Azure, and GCP all have fundamentally different storage architectures.
Yep.
Even the network stacks and latency profiles are different. So how do you deliver consistency when the underlying platforms are architecturally incompatible? And then what does Dell abstract away that, if you're honest and able to tell a little bit about that, would love to hear from you.
So I think there's two parts to that. One is an increasingly part of our portfolio runs in public clouds. Some of it is if you don't have the infrastructure available, you don't want the infrastructure, or again, you want to make a choice to utilize a public cloud environment. A lot of our technology is now software defined and runs in those public clouds. That's part of the answer. The other half is supporting open standards from an automation and orchestration perspective. So under the covers of that automation platform that we're delivering to customers, it is an open standard capability. So customers that are using Terraform, that are using Ansible, that are using Puppet, can utilize those within the platform. And there's going to be lots of announcements later this year that are expand on that capability that sits under the covers today. But that means that we're not locking customers into some proprietary technology. We're saying, look, if you need us to help you take away the keeping the lights on, take away give you the simplicity of the environment back, so that you've got time, because that's typically the biggest challenge for most of the customers that I talk to. They don't have the time and the resources to invest in some of these AI projects or doing the data cleanup or improving the security stance, whatever it is. We're trying to give them that back by driving this consistency model across their environments.
And I'm guessing that's why Dell is able to work with Kubernetes in a different way than typically or historically what's been the scenario. Because Apex now manages Kubernetes persistently across PowerFlex or PowerScale, for example.
Yep. So I think some of that comes down to, and I get this question a lot, like if we're investing more in Kubernetes, and I am a firm believer, if you ever heard me say anything on this subject, I am a big believer in containers are a requirement in 2026. Yes, they're not optional. No AI project is running without the use of Kubernetes and containers. And everyone's trying to do more with less. And again, containers help in that regard. There is a myth that all containers are stateless. they're not. The data needs to be saved somewhere. And I think there's two lessons I've learned over the last almost decade of having this conversation. One is we're not here to tell a customer what Kubernetes flavor to run. I would suggest they pick one of the big flavors and they don't try and sort of build their own. But whether a customer is using Rancher or they're using OpenShift or they're using AKS or EKS, it doesn't matter. Our integration into that environment is above and beyond just what's typically referred to as CSI, which is the Container Storage Interface. It's what we refer to as CSM, it's the Container Storage Management. So the need to do those enterprise-grade features, the need to do snapshotting and security and quota management and everything else that, if you're a storage admin that you're familiar with, none of that disappears. It doesn't magically go away. Kubernetes doesn't make any of that not important. It just means we need to deal with it in a consistent way. So back to your previous question, it's the same CSI, CSM. Regardless of what storage platform you're using, regardless of what Kubernetes environment you're using, and regardless of whether it's on-prem or cloud, it's the same way of doing it.
And because you're saying it's the same way of doing it, architecturally, there's also always been this data gravity trap that's been growing, especially with different cloud platforms and different proprietary Kubernetes platforms or Kubernetes related platforms that are spinning out. So behind the scenes, what does Apex do differently that solves the data gravity issue or allows things to be more simplified, or does it make it worse?
So I'll say, so firstly, like, it's the Dell automation platform that's driving this. Again, Apex is there to help if a customer wants the consumption model, but the Dell automation platform is definitely helping in this regard. And I don't want to turn this into a full AI discussion, but we're going to keep touching back on AI, I'm sure. What that platform allows us to do is to say, do you need to focus on data collection, data management, and AI processing out at the edge? Great. Like we have an entire portfolio under the Dell automation platform, technology stack called Native Edge, which is there to do just that. Is your data collection and management and data gravity inside the data center? Perfect. Like we have things like the Dell private cloud that will let you manage and orchestrate and run that. And then to take that even further, we're kind of splitting up the way we're helping kind of the storage team think about this through not just storage platforms, but data management platforms, and helping them create the data pipelines between these locations. Because to your point, data gravity is a thing. It's a thing we have to account for. We don't solve that by moving and lifting and shifting all the data into one location. We solve that by interconnecting all these environments. Leave the data where it is. That's the hardest thing to move. From a Canadian lens, most of the customers I talk to, they haven't moved all their data into one location. They haven't moved all their data into a public cloud. Now what they're trying to do is connect all those data sources, sometimes those disparate sources, so they can build that data lake, build that one source of truth. But it's not about a wholesale lift and shift. So we're trying to make that data spool easier to deal with, easier to manage, to catalog, to tag, to protect, to provide resiliency on. But I think there's an acknowledgement that that's not going to disappear. We're not going to lose the edge. If anything, the edge is growing. Therefore, this problem is not going away. We have to solve that.
And partners play an important role in this, like our company ESPI Consulting Services, for example. We work very closely with Equinix as a partner and Dell Apex.
Yeah, I think being able to provide colo facilities, being able to provide data center wherever the customer needs it, which may not always be where they've got existing data centers today. It's a growth area for a lot of customers because maybe they don't have the power and cooling requirements for the new AI workloads they're bringing on board. So absolutely, like the partner ecosystem, working with ESTI to help guide the journey, guide the customer on that journey, support them through this life cycle and this transformation. And then, utilizing partnerships with Equinix is a great example. Like, here's a colo provider. We'll help manage and orchestrate this again in a consistent manner. It's another location, but that doesn't mean we're transforming or having to change the way you're dealing with it.
Yeah. And because of all this, there is a huge transformation happening, and it will keep happening, I'm guessing, for the next few years because of the new AI journey as well, and the cloud journey transforming. by itself as a result of it. You've sat across hundreds of IT leaders by now, and you've seen the oohs and the ahs around various topics. Has there ever been a moment where someone finally understood as an infrastructure architecture, and what did it look like when it clicked for them?
It's amazing to watch that transformation, because sometimes it starts very gradually. Like, we'll introduce one piece of that technology stack and we'll help them in some way. And there's a number of customers that have gone through this and slowly seen, you see the light bulb moment where it's to your point, it suddenly clicks for them. There's some great ones that we talk about a lot. I talk about one that's very public. So Nature Fresh Farms is a good example. They started out for us in the data center. They expanded out to the edge. That transformation happened first with our native edge technology. They've recently taken on board the Dell automation platform, the Dell private cloud. And you absolutely see this fundamental shift and transformation, because now there is one place to manage and control and update that environment, regardless of its size and scale, and to give them hypervisor choice. There are others, I'm not going to name names, but I can think of a couple of examples in even the federal space where this technology is giving them the freedom to say, my infrastructure investment is not limiting. It's not tying me to a specific hypervisor, for example. If I need to shift a section of this to be an Azure local environment, if I need to shift a section of this equipment to be Nutanix or Red Hat or Broadcom, that shift can happen naturally, because again, especially in the federal space, they're keeping that equipment for 5 years at least.
Right.
So we're not locking them into any decisions they might make in the short term about that technology stack. But to come back to the previous point, there's a consistent way of managing and controlling.
Interesting, because the way I see it is the management is becoming more complex, and it's also evolving at the same time, primarily because what used to be a slam dunk 5-year roadmap is no longer a 5-year roadmap these days.
Yeah.
Things are going so fast.
Yeah, there is so much change in the market right now. Obviously, AI's impact is can't be understated. Even when I'm walking into meetings where AI is not the topic, it's something else. We're in there to talk about supply chain security, or we're in there to talk about the multi-cloud evolution. We're in there to talk about application modernization or data management, whatever it is. We always end up having an AI conversation because it's impacting every single one of those things. And you're right. That means that I might need more compute resource in an environment where I didn't have it before, or I might need to shift the storage location. I mean, just shift the performance profile of the workload, because we're introducing an AI capability into it. So you're right. It very rarely is this here's the infrastructure I'm gonna buy now with a 5-year view, and that's not going to change. Again, that's where Apex comes in to try and make that a little bit easier, more public cloud-like. Just grow this as you need it, pay for it as you're using it. That is helping customers navigate this transformation.
So that thing, I'm going to make your prediction, Guru.
Okay.
Because you again meet so many IT leaders and the vendor side and partner side also. What do you think the future of infrastructure would look like in the next 3 years? Something that you're absolutely certain is coming, that most IT leaders are unprepared for.
I think there's two parts to that. One is the sort of disaggregated infrastructure that I think is a necessity as we move into this unpredictable world. We've learned a lot as we've gone from sort of 3-tier into HCI and now into disaggregated infrastructure. The ability for teams to scale compute and storage and different types of compute, CPU, GPU, NPU, DPU, it's like
silos.
That is a reality, I think, in 2026 and beyond, that I'm not sure everyone has thought about and comprehended yet. because what we don't want to do is throw the lessons learned of things like HCI, of lifecycle management, of automation, of consistency as we enable that capability. The second thing that I don't think customers are unaware of it, but the magnitude of its impact, I think, is something that is going to take more and more customers by surprise. And this may not be a surprise to anyone listening to this, data management. We have been struggling for the last decade to make sure that data is cleaned and tagged properly, in the right location, in the right format, with all of the right metadata around it, with the right backup strategy and everything else. And that's been a struggle, just because of its proliferation. AI has come along and made that problem very obvious. And no AI project, by and large, is going to succeed without some level of fixing that problem, of solving the data management issue, of correctly identifying the data and truly building that one source of truth. That is an easy thing to say. It's a very difficult thing to do because, it's a technology and a business process transformation. But I think most organizations are going to be amazed at the amount you get back from solving that problem. I think as agentic systems, as you pointed out, we're going to have agents flying around all over the place. We're going to see this sprawl, and the only way to manage and control that, and more importantly, get the output of that we want, is to solve the data problem. And it is not just throw more storage at the situation.
So is there any one capability inside Apex that you can point out which is genuinely underrated?
So if you look at our the Dell AI data platform, which is a combination of a data engine and a storage engine. I think most teams focus on the storage piece, the power stores of this world, the power scales. The ability to then run the data analytics engine on top of that. So that's growing. We've made some announcements this week on the growth of that space. Some of it is, it's our partnership with organizations like Starburst. Some of it is coming from acquisition. So we made an acquisition last year in an organization called Data Loop to help with that data tagging and management. To me, again, it comes back to your question earlier on the light bulb moment. When they realize they've got the foundation, storage is there, they just need this extra thing that sits on top of that dramatically improves the world of business intelligence, of DevOps teams, of data management groups, because it's built into the platform. It's not something they are wasting their time on. Even connections. Again, the number of times when we're dealing with customers and they've got all these different data connectors into all these different data sources, Databricks, Snowflakes, you name it, SQL databases, it's all over the place. And their teams are the one building these connectors. And when we say, well, here's our platform, here's the Dell, data engine, and it has those connectors, they're just a drop down that you don't have to worry about building and configuring that. It's just part of the overall one source of truth. Again, you see that light bulb and go off. Yeah, that's not something they have to build themselves. So that is part of our portfolio that I think right now is gaining more and more traction, but is probably the one piece that is overlooked that truly differentiates us.
And that piece changes from industry to industry, vertical to vertical. So not all of it, but some components of it, or even the scale of it.
The scale of it.
So where do you think the Dell automation framework or the platform has made the biggest impact, like direct biggest impact that you've seen? In healthcare, manufacturing, financial services, retail, supply chain?
It's a hard one. I think it's across the board. I will say manufacturing is definitely one area. I will say from a federal level as well, I think, again, because it helps solve some of the potential uncertainty that they're dealing with right now. But healthcare, manufacturing, any environment where the data center management and control is starting to get into the OT, IoT landscape, the ability to say, we can do this. We can transform that area. We can transform that industry, and we have seen the results of doing that. Again, standardizing this, of providing some modernization into those environments where they really don't want to modernize, especially when it's a manufacturing plant. Like the uptime of that environment is number one. The security of that is typically not something they put on the same level, whereas the traditional IT team is almost the reverse of that. So suddenly being able to manage and control all of that, and quite literally ship a device into the middle of nowhere that's going out into one of the manufacturing floors, have no one with IT experience in that location. As long as they can mount the thing where it needs to go and plug in two cables, everything else is then controlled centrally in a highly secure fashion, without losing the resiliency that is necessary in those locations. So that's probably one area through that native edge platform that we've seen some of the biggest transformations.
And that honestly resonates with me, because way back when I first started with virtualizing enterprise workloads on VMware, I was part of a large retail operation back then, one of the customers I was working for. And they had the struggle with virtualizing warehouse, USB dongles,
Yes.
everything else. I remember those things.
Yeah.
So when you spoke about the complexity of IoT and
Yeah.
the edge devices, it instantly got to me, and I was like, yeah, so we are again transforming things in a different way, but for again maybe the same verticals.
Yeah. And again, I think one of the unique capabilities we have is that breadth of the portfolio.
Yeah.
Is to be able to say, okay, you need some small form factor device. Does it need lots of compute? Not always. Does it need a GPU? Not always. Does it need to withstand crazy temperature fluctuations, vibration controls? Do you need us to customize it? As again, a thing that we don't, I think, talk about enough is that our entire OEM division that takes this equipment and then even further, makes modifications that are required for industries or certifications that are needed for industry. So again, the power of that, of the organization, can always solve the problem. We just need to make sure we understand what that is.
Thank you very much, James.